Spiritualism through the SNU was founded in 1901, and some of the forefathers from Gordon Higginson, Eric Hatton and Judith Seaman have all helped light the way to the current chapter. Having been a spiritualist now for 30 years and my spirituality being more prevalent than ever, the ability to go to a college in Stansted, thanks in no part to the great Arthur Findlay, is a true blessing. Who is, though, carrying the spiritual baton forward? There are many fine teachers and mediums, but one lady that profoundly changed my life was Simone Key. A minister, teacher, and medium, Simone brings a reality to the movement in a way that resonates. Simone started her spiritual journey from an atheist standpoint, as she explains here.
Oh, it's like most people, it's a bit of a long story, but I started off in my younger years as a very, very strong atheist. I did not believe in life after death, and I certainly didn't believe in a God. And then as the years went on, I became quite ill, and I went to a healer, and he told me things that I didn't accept. But I knew I'd got to look into it. In actual fact, I set out to disprove what we're doing now, disprove everything I stand for. And that's probably why I'm here today.
I'm Julian Jenkins, and you're listening to That's the Spirit. Simone is an appointed teacher of the Spiritualist National Union, a diploma holder in public speaking in spiritualist education, as well as a certificate holder in speaking, demonstrating and teaching. She's also an appointed assessor. For the past 7 years, Simone has held the position of Senior Tutor at the Arthur Findlay College. Her aim is to ensure the college retains its reputation as the finest spirituals teaching facility in the world, with the very best teachers. And I can truly vouch for this achievement. Simone talks honestly about her spiritual journey within this episode of That's the Spirit.
I was very frightened, like a lot of people who have things happen to them in this field of spirit, and had no understanding whatsoever. But as time went on, and I remember having to really work hard, and I struggled actually to find my direction in this, because I was very anti-religion, and now I'm a minister, and that's a complete turnaround from my start. And I feel that now it's important that we understand that spiritualism is a religion. And that's part of my mission in life, is to prove that we're not about party tricks. We do have a good philosophy, a good understanding, and a means by which we can help people every day of the week. Maybe not hundreds of people at a time, but even if it's just one, it's enough for me. But my story is like many other people, very skeptical, even cynical. And I know that the spirit world actually drew the short straw when they chose me to work with them, because I was a tough cookie, and still am actually. It disturbs me that people think that we accept it blindly, that we don't test, we don't challenge, we don't confront our beliefs. And it's only through that we find A, who we are, and B, what life is really all about. So that's my story, but it was a tough 3 years, let me put it that way.
And I'm so glad you kept going with it, because I think you make such a big difference to so many people now, through the college and the work that you do. You're obviously very well connected now and with the SNU. Can you tell me a little bit about the work that you do with the Spiritualist National Union?
Well, I've been on many committees, and at the moment, I'm on the collegiate committee, which is the committee for the Arthur Findlay College and the Barbanell Centre in Stafford, and I do work, and my position on there is and Senior Tutor. But my honest belief is that the Spiritualist National Union is my religion, and it's everything that I am and everything that I believe in. And it has a purpose, it has a point. And for me, the point is that it's not a mindless religion that tells me how to think and what to believe. It helps me to understand myself and other people. But more importantly, it has people that you can go to. So, for instance, if you're interested in spiritualist education, if you're interested in the ministry, if you were interested in training and awards, for instance, I know it's now called exponents, but if you're interested in those fields, then there are bodies that work with those every day, and they're all voluntary, all of it's voluntary. And that's what I love about it, is because it's run by a team of dedicated and committed people who want to look to the future, and that's what we're about. For me, that's what it's about. It's about understanding that all that we do is a process of refinement. So the more we do it, the more refined it becomes. And that includes, I think, and sincerely believe, that committee work should be a process of refinement as well. So we're moving forward progressively all the time. That's how I see it.
With there's going to be people in this room who maybe are members of the SNU, who are experienced mediums. There'll be people here who are just coming to spirituality and spiritualism for the first time. What sort of message would you give them about the SNU? Why? And I'm not saying you have to preach whatever it is, but, but why would you encourage people to join a movement such as the SNU?
Well, for me, it's about membership, because you can be an individual member, you can have a vote, so that you're involved in the running of the Spiritualist National Union. But more importantly, it gives you access to so many opportunities. You can, if you were interested in healing, then you could understand about the code of conduct and the law. If you're interested in mediumship, you could understand about platform etiquette, or if you're interested in doing one-to-one sittings. But just the experience of the spirit and is important to me in every direction. But I would say to people that are new and are thinking about, coming into our movement, if you like, then, you can't go wrong with joining the SNU, because you have a body of people who will guide you and help you to find what's right for you, and they are people that give up their time and they're dedicated to those positions.
It's obviously the SNU works with, obviously owns the Arthur Findlay College. Yeah. Obviously, for those people who don't know, Arthur Findlay was a very influential and businessman who was a spiritualist who gave away his Stansted Hall to the SNU to keep it for teaching psychic mediumship, etc. And I'm still reading. I'm going to finish it tomorrow on the train going back to Arthur Findlay. The Gordon Higginson book, and he talked so fondly about Arthur Findlay College and how it was his second home, and just the amazing people, the network, the teachings, everything about the place. And for the first time I went there, I was blown away for so many reasons, but one is the energy there is just phenomenal. Yeah. Secondly, I was really taken aback by the international flavor. People from all over the world came to the college, and that took me back as well. But what I loved about it more than anything, it was the first time really in my life that I was in a place surrounded by like-minded people. And the energy and the love was truly amazing. And congratulations to everybody who every day makes that place such a special space. But it is a special place for you. And I know you're one of the key teachers. You tell us a little bit about those. Some people might not know about Arthur Findlay, might not know about the college, but also the amazing work that you do.
Yeah, Arthur Findlay left his home to the Spiritualist National Union in 1964. And in those days, it always reminds me a bit of Great Expectations. We lived in a very small part of a very big hall. And when I first came to the college, it was in the 80s. And I'd met Gordon Higginson many times. He was a wonderful, wonderful medium and a brilliant speaker. And he was a man whose energy you could feel when he walked into the building. People used to tell me that, and I didn't believe them. But when I was there, you could tell when he'd arrived, the energy in the whole of that hall had changed. And he was exciting. He was vibrant. And he made you believe every word he said. And there's so few people today that can do that. But he gave his whole life to spiritualism. And I'm sure there's so many of us that wouldn't be at the college or have such fond memories as we do if it hadn't been for him. But the college for me is a place that's not just, for me, exclusive. It's the centre of the world where spiritualism is concerned. Yes, we have people that come from every walk of life, every country, and on every course, regardless of whether it's a course for the Italians or for the Finnish people or the Japanese people, well, we have people come from everywhere, and they recognise that there is something special. They will travel that far. And yet, there's most of us who complain if we've got a 20-minute drive somewhere, but they will travel across the world to come because they know they won't get teaching like it anywhere else. And for me, that's important that we retain that exclusivity, that there is nowhere else like it in the world. Yes, of course, there are lots of centres, places where I work throughout the world as well. But there is nothing like the Arthur Findlay College because it has its history, it has its dynamics, it has everything about it from the minute you walk in the door. And you make friends, and that's what I think people miss out on. They don't realise that they make friends there, and they're friends for life. I've got friends who I met in the 80s who are still friends of mine, And it's something about spirit that joins us all together in this unity. And when you come to a place like the college where for some people it's hard, not just financially, but it's hard to get a week off. If you've got a family, to get a week away from your family, it's quite an indulgence sometimes. I know when I first came into this movement, I had 2 small children, so I know that you couldn't always get the time off that you wanted. But at the end of the day, when you walk in that building and you meet those people, and we're all coming from that same place, we're spiritually driven. And every one we come across has a different reason, maybe, a different purpose. But at the end of the day, it's a celebration of the spirit. And it's 7 days, if you're on a 7-day course, where you can spend just thinking and working with your spirit and the spirit world. And that, to me, there is nowhere else like it. That where we train so hard, and where we can help people by nurturing them as well to recognise that the value that they have, that it's not just a party trick, that it's valuable, the power of the spirit. And people might think that as a minister, my job is to go out there and tell people that we survive physical death. And it's not. That's not my purpose, because one day everybody's going to know that. If they don't now, they will one day when they get to the next world. I'm not going to waste my time trying to prove anything to anyone. But what I want to do is to show people that they too have a power that they can connect with, that's external to them, to help them cope with life. And that's what it's about. It's not just about those souls that have survived physical death. It's about the living. And we focus on the living. We look at the college, we look at things like personal development, because every one of us is different. And I celebrate individualism. Every single individual has maybe a different concept or a different way of communicating with the spirit world. But nobody has the right to tell you that the way you're communicating with that world is wrong, because you've always communicated and always will. What we're trying to do is to communicate in what I call the ordinary, everyday level of consciousness. Maybe we connect with them subconsciously or unconsciously or even subliminally, but nevertheless, we're all trying to work with it in the same way on what I call this everyday level of consciousness. And that's what we should be doing. We should be helping each other. Sometimes I get very upset by how people become competitive within spiritualism, where one person wants to be a better medium than somebody else. And that's so unfair, because we each have our own purpose, our own reason to be involved in this, and we're not the same. Whatever your life is your life. Your experiences are going to be very different to mine. Even if we've experienced something very similar, it's going to be different. So we have no right to tell people they are wrong and we are right. However, what we try to do is to help them enhance that communication, to help them give techniques or help them to have guidance, to help them understand that there's more about them, if you like, in their awareness than they even know or recognize. That's what we intend to do. That's our aim, if you like, our objective.
And you certainly achieve it. When I was there, I was truly blown away. I can remember you sat down at the beginning, you asked us all, why have you come and why are you here? And one of the things that I said, and I've always been in football all my life, so I always use football analogies. And I said, I wanted to play football with some of the best footballers in the world. And that's what I did, when I was there for that week, being around yourself, and then, splitting out courses with Lynn, which is an amazing teacher, and Tony, which was amazing as well. But for me, the college itself, it really did change my life. And I'll tell you the story. I actually thought on the Sunday morning, after being there for a week, and it is hard work there, mind, you don't go there and put your feet up and put your slippers on. I know that for a fact, right? It is hard work, but that's what we're there for. And I was, I sort of come home and thought, right, on the Sunday, I'm going to know what I want to do. And I didn't. And I thought, so I went to a local church, and I was there, and we had a service, and names will remain nameless, but there was a medium on the stage, and she gave a philosophy that I couldn't connect with. I thought it was not great. And then she did mediumship, and the first opening line was, I've got a lady energy. Can anyone understand the sound of music? And I thought to myself, oh my God, if this lady would have got on the stage with Simone earlier on in the week, oh my God, there would have been murder. There'd have been feathers everywhere. And I was just like, but it was great for me, because that was the penny drop moment, because all of the things that you've just discussed and said, and you talk about, that was the penny drop moment for me. It was like, no, we've got to be better. We can't accept. Now, I'm not down crying the medium. Maybe she needs to be retrained. Maybe she needs to spend a week with you, Simone, right? Because I tell you what, she. For me, it was that moment. I was like, oh my God, I now know what I've got to do. I've got to raise the bar to be where I've been all week, and try and help these people to greater understand that mediocrity is no longer acceptable. If this movement will forward, and we're actually going to. We're going to get better at what we do. We're going to, as you said, we're going to keep refining everything that we do. And we're all students. But for me, it was like that moment when she did that, I went, oh my God, Simone would go crazy. But you're saying it is refining that. And I suppose sometimes not getting frustrated with it, because we're all learning. But how do you see mediumship in the future and where it's going? And how do we, everything you discussed, how do we roll that out to a much wider and bigger audience?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to understand that not everybody who comes to a church or everyone who comes to a town hall to see a demonstration of mediumship understands what we do. And I've got a great thing about jargon. Within spiritualism, there is so much jargon. And that's where I feel we could make a difference instantly, is by talking about, you wouldn't talk about anyone in everyday life as a female energy. You just wouldn't talk about them. You say a woman or a girl or a young lady, whatever, but you wouldn't talk about them as a female energy. And that is what drives me nuts, because people today just keep using this jargon as a cover-up almost. It's like playing for time. And many, many years ago, I'm afraid too long ago to mention, but I was inspired, if you like, or influenced by the spirit world to work for a holiday camp. And I worked there for 6 years. I worked there every Tuesday, every week for 6 years in the holiday season, where I actually did demonstrations of mediumship and I did questions and answers to members of the public. Do you know, that taught me such a lot? That in itself taught me a lot. I've had people walk out on me, and it was in the days where you could smoke and you could drink while you're watching a demonstration of mediumship, which you wouldn't get now. But that was what taught me that we've got to reach people. We can't feel safe all the time. We can't keep protecting ourselves with jargon. We've got to put our necks on the line and say, I've got a man, I've got a woman, I've got a girl, I've got a boy, and then explain who they are and talk in everyday language, because otherwise we're going to lose it. And hopefully my aim, if you like, for the future of mediumship is I can see that maybe in 20, 30 years' time, there may not be the need that we have at the moment. At the moment, if you even look around you, the press are not perhaps quite so interested as they used to be within us, or the local television channels are not so interested in mediumship. For them, it's a bit old hat. But that's not the point. The point is we have to be able to get our point across in an intelligent way, where people will listen to us and believe us because they have the evidence to back up what we're saying. That's where I come from. And I feel that maybe in the future, mediumship won't be like where I live in Norfolk. It's everywhere. It's almost like every town hall and every pub and everywhere. There's churches everywhere. But I think in the future, there's going to have to be something where maybe people have got some kind of, I hate to use the word certificate, but some kind of diploma to say that they are qualified to stand on a spiritualist platform. Perhaps in the past, we've actually had too much leeway, if you like. There hasn't been much, discipline about who can work on a platform. I remember when I first started, the very first service I ever did, there was a wonderful minister in my own area called Trevor Claxton, and I had turned up and the medium hadn't, and I did that in the evening, and I should never have done it. I remember that. I was so terrified. I should never have done it. And now I set out to help people manage their nerves, because I know how that feels. And I do know the difference between being nervous and being petrified. But what I remember Trevor saying to me was, if a medium doesn't turn up and a donkey does, we all know who's going to do that service. And I don't want my religion. He's in the spirit world now and he's probably laughing at me. But I don't want my religion portrayed like that. I want my religion portrayed intelligently, with people that have got something to say, and not just about how they got into spiritualism, because we've all got a story, but at the end of the day, we've heard it all. We need a new approach, maybe. We need an approach whereby people are strong and they're good speakers and they're intelligent, where they can deliver a message that's understood from beginning to end. I'm not saying they've got to understand what the whole thing, the whole background to it, but that the public can understand what's being said. They understand evidence. They're not that stupid. And that's another thing. We've got to be sure that we deliver the goods, and let people see that maybe spiritualism may not be right for them, may not be their way, but at least to help them to become perhaps more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just acknowledge it and accept it, but without, getting angry about us and confrontational and aggressive. That's what upsets me most, is when other religions become aggressive about what I do. But the way forward for me has to be about refining our abilities and also having, maybe, I think we miss Wembley. I mean, many years ago, I think it was in the 80s, we had a big meeting in Wembley. And I think sometimes spiritualists need to get back together again. And we all go off in our separate ways, but we need something to pull us together sometimes. There's a bit above and beyond the church. The church does a wonderful job. Please don't misunderstand me. It brings people together. It helps people to understand that they're not on their own and that they have an understanding that, will be shared with lots of others. But I feel we need something else as well now, So that's my view.
I think you're right. And I think one of the things that, I talk about quite a bit is that, the sense of community. And I think that's one thing that is going to come back. And however that is, I don't know. You're going back 50 years ago, just after the war or whatever it was, there was that sense of togetherness, that sense of community. And we've lost a lot of that, and I think that's a shame. And that's just general life. I don't know how many people, some people don't even know their neighbors and they live next to them for 20 years, it's just, and I think cars have done a lot of that because you get in your car and you're gone. Before when you'd have cars, you'd have to catch a train, catch a bus, and you'd be around people. So I think a lot of things have changed it, and social media is another one, and all those areas. But for me anyway, is how do we go about? Because what you said to me, and it was a penny drop moment, just literally now, is that I want my religion to be the best it can be, both in terms, the perception of the outside world to try and bring more people in. I took a young girl to that church service, and I actually had to apologize to her afterwards and said, it's not like that every week. I promise you. And unfortunately, she's come back and she's seen demonstrations and she comes to my development group, etc., etc. But if I hadn't have put my arm around that 22-year-old, she would never have gone back.
Right. Yeah.
And that hurts. That really hurts. And I'm not a preacher. I'm not going around knocking doors and telling. I think religion and your own religion and your own beliefs, they're very personal and it should be kept that way. But how do we really refine it? How can we bring Wembley back? How can we do those things?
I don't honestly know, because maybe there needs to be more of a connection between churches. I mean, I know that, say, for instance, where I live in Norfolk, we've got our one Spiritualist National Union church, and then we've got lots of independent and so on. And I think I counted in Norfolk and Suffolk, we got about 33 at one point. There could be more than that now. But we need to have something that pulls us all together. And that's the big one, because you've already mentioned the fact that the community is no longer present as it was. So therefore, people are becoming used to being on their own. So it's about finding a way. You can see it at the college, the Arthur Findlay College. When people come in and after a couple of days, they start to mix, they start to make friends and so on. But it takes a while. Where years and years ago, when the college, was run very differently under Gordon Higginson, people would come in coachloads from churches. That's how it started. And those people would be the people that they would make the beds, they would do the cooking, they would do the cleaning, and everybody mucked in together. But we don't get that now, because in a lot of the churches that I visit, you can see that it's even hard to sell a raffle ticket or to get someone to do that job or make a cup of tea. The climate, the social climate has changed so much that people want to be able to pay their money and go home. So we have to find a way around that. We have to find, and I know I'm with Tanya Smith, who's the general manager at the college, and we've got Sandy Baker and I. Sandy is the course organizer and tutor liaison. And with the three of us went to Olympia a couple of years ago, and we had a stall there to see if we could bring people in from the London area, but it's not what people, it wasn't as successful as we would like. We had a good time, don't get me wrong, but it didn't bring in the numbers that we were hoping for, because that's not what people want. They want to It can be your friend that's introduced you, or you might walk past the Spiritualist church, but it's not going in that worries me. It's keeping people there that worries me. If we can get them through the door and get them to see who we are as people, and that has to be in the way we behave towards one another, not just in what message we get from the spirit world. And once they see that, and that we're genuine people that welcome them, but not to the point where they feel almost threatened that they're not allowed to breathe or whatever, or they feel that they've got to come back every week or they can't do it. But that's the point. We need to get people in the door and get good speakers, good demonstrators, good exponents who can hold and maintain the interest of the public. And unfortunately, there isn't any guidance for people now on platforms generally. I mean, I'm talking about across the UK. I don't mean in SNU churches.
Yeah, you're right. And do you think, though, and I'm seeing this quite a bit, that, the church that I go to is a Christian Spiritualist church. Yeah. It is an SNU church just down the road, but for some reason I've just been drawn to the other church, okay? So I go there on a Sunday service, 10, 15 people. I go there on a Wednesday for a demonstration of mediumship, 35, 40 people. Do you think sometimes, though, that the religious aspect on a Sunday puts people off? Is there any way around that?
Yeah, that depends on where you live, because my church is Norwich Church, Norwich Spiritualist Church. And at Norwich Church, it's renowned because it's the opposite. On a Sunday, right, you'll get masses of people. On a Thursday, you'll hardly get anybody there at all. So it does depend on the church, and it depends on the quality of the people that speak on a Sunday too. People there want spiritualism. They're not just interested in the message as such. But don't get me wrong, I do believe in that message, because that can be the turning point in somebody's life.
I agree with you. The only thing that does concern me is that, and it's your fault in many ways, because you've opened me up now and I'm doing this full time. So it's all your fault. I'm blaming you.
Yeah, that's right? All right. That's all right. I'm used to it.
But seriously though, I worry sometimes, and I'm a young boy growing up in this. I've been with Spirit for 40 years, since the age of 5, but actually opening up now and being fully in. It does worry me that we, in some ways, I say we've lost the spirit in spirituality, and what worries me is that it just seems to me now is that, and specifically, if I let it happen, I would just become a conveyor belt. Yes. Of mediumship messages, and that it's just like as if they want me to be a robot. Come in, sit down. Right, I want to speak to my mum. Come in, sit down. I want to speak to my dad. Come in, sit down. There's all of that all the time, and I just feel and how do we do this? How do we put the spirituality back into spiritualism, if you like?
I think also, first of all, I would suggest that if I was to start again and I was starting to do one-to-one private sittings or readings, I would look to see what's the point. What is that person coming for? If they want me to tell them where they're going to move or any kind of fortune telling, I'm quite happy to say now, I'm sorry, I don't do that. That's not my way, because that's nothing to do with the spirit world. But we need to be more discerning about what we do. And unfortunately, I think it's because mediums on the whole are good-natured people. They have got a soul, they have got empathy, if you like, and they want to please. And sometimes by pleasing people, we're not doing ourselves any good. If you understand that, because by trying to go down that road, I've done sittings like everybody else has, that you've walked away feeling bad because you have been asked to do something that goes against what you stand for. I've done sittings with people who insist that their daughter-in-law has murdered their son, or that the next door neighbour has murdered their mother, and they want me to say, yeah, you're right, and I can't say that because I don't believe it. But that's the kind of thing that I think we get put in a corner over, and that's why I think that that's where we go wrong. We let ourselves down because we want to give people hope. We want to give them that light at the end of the tunnel. And there's something within us that wants to tell them what they want to hear. And I know all of us have done that at some point. All I know now is that if I was to start again, I'd be much clearer defined as to what my work was about and what I wanted to do and what I don't want to. Please don't take that the wrong way. There are a lot of really good fortune tellers out there. Really good. It's not my way and never has been my way. And my way is not always about the spirit discarnate, the spirit world. It can be about that person, that individual's spirit. For me, that is the point. That's why we get our information from the spirit world, not to help their world, but to help our world and to help it to become a better place. And if you do one reading and you've got somebody who really has a need, who really needs to know that they're not alone. That, for me, is the greatest message that spiritualism has. It isn't the one about we survive physical death and blah, blah, blah. It's the fact that no matter how down you are, how low you are, how isolated you feel, you are never alone. And that is a message that's never propounded by our movement and can make a massive difference to a lot of people today, because a lot of people today are very lonely and very isolated because, like you said earlier, because of the breakdown in the community.
Amen. No, I agree with all of it. I agree with all of it, and I love what you say about if you started again, and which is great, really, because there's a lot of people in the room, and they're going to be listening, and they're going to be thinking, right, okay, I'm on this road, or I'm going down this road, or I'm 3/4 of the way down this road. Where do I go from here? The course that I was on with yourself was evidential mediumship. What would you say would be the sort of core pillars to becoming a medium that you talk about with quality and refinement? What would you say the core pillars to that would be?
Discipline, absolute discipline. And I can say this because I was totally undisciplined when I first started. But it's discipline. It's about having a particular time. So, narrow it down maybe to an hour a day where you sit on your own with that world and ask them to help you, to teach you. I always say to people, I never give advice, ever. But the only piece of advice I ever give anybody is make the spirit world your teachers. They will help you. We all need each other, for goodness sake, otherwise I wouldn't do the job I did. But if we have our allegiance to the spirit world first, then we can start to become decent mediums. And it's not to be pulled by other people. I know in the beginning of my development, people would come to me and you'd be there sometimes 2 hours with somebody because I didn't have the courage to say, I'm sorry, I finished. So I keep going on and on and on. And they would just keep pulling all the time. But really what I'm saying is they were looking to a shortcut to life. They wanted the fortune telling because it saved them looking for a job, looking to think for themselves where they want to move, looking to see if they've got a partner out there somewhere. It saves them work. And I am not a shortcut to life. I'm still going to tell you, not you, but tell people to go down the job centre. I'm still going to say to them, look through papers, I'm still going to say, well, where do you want to move? And to those people that say, does my dad know who I'm going to be meeting and marrying next? My message to them is, get out more, and I mean, I promise you I wouldn't say that, but that's what's in my head. So they want to use the medium almost like a sat-nav to their life, and that's not what it's about. to me, it's so much more than that. Even if it's about their own personal development, I'm happy because you can help, you can encourage, you can support, and you can empower people. Our job should be about empowerment. We should be empowering people all the time, and not by telling them what they want to hear. I don't mean it that way, but by saying to them, when you connect with the spirit world, this is the way you do it. This is what you feel. This is what you're aware of. And this is how it makes you feel. And that's what I want to do. And I want to help people to understand that that connection is a connection for life. Because in that connection, there is no shortcut to the experience of spirit. I've had people say to me over the years, could you give me the manual, the A to Z of mediumship? Or they've said to me, come on, Simone, do us a favour. Just tell us quickly, how do we do this? And I say, have you got 30 years to spare? Because it hurts when people think that it's a commodity that you can just chuck out like a used tea bag. I don't know where that came from because I don't even drink tea. But there you go. But it's a commodity to them, and that's what they miss. They miss out because they don't understand or acknowledge or even believe in the power of the spirit that exists in them and in everyone. And that's what we should be celebrating, and not, I've got your granny here with a wraparound apron and a rolling pin,
I agree, and I was absolutely mortified the other day. And it really it upset me a little bit, because I just think that sometimes this is where the world's going. But I'm on a lot of groups, and this one girl had posted on a group, "Can anyone tell me the best app to talk to spirit?"
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh my God!" Do you know what I mean? Steve Jobs and Apple have done a lot of things, but I don't think that's one of them. But no, and that's what she asked. She asked, "What is the best app to contact spirit?" And I think that worries me in the essence of the question, is that technology can do a lot of things, and look at us now. I know there's people from all over the world watching what we're doing now, and we've had hundreds of people come through already this evening. But an app for and I think sometimes that's where we've gone a little bit, and I think how educating the younger generation, because I do feel of missing a generation. How can I go and grab a youngster, and careful how I say this, but how can I go and get a youngster to come into the movement, and what would you say to them to turn their lights on?
Personally, I find that a difficult question, because I would want to see, obviously, like everybody else, I'd love to see more young people in our churches, but I'm not so keen on little kids being in circles. I feel that children have enough to learn in life. Once they become adults, that's a different story altogether. But I feel that it's not about bringing young people in, it's keeping them there. And all the time we talk about, adults in the spirit world who are grannies with wraparound aprons and, holding rolling pins. We're going to lose them, because people today, grandmothers today, and I was a grandmother for the fourth time 2 days ago, which is my favourite occupation in the world. But grandmothers today, they've got piercings, they've got tattoos, they're like me. I'm a typical, I hate cooking. I'll eat out of a microwave if I can. But that's what we're talking about. That's the information, and not to keep hanging on to the past all the time. We have got to move forward, and we've got to move forward with intelligence so that we can bring about the real character of an individual, the real personality, along with charisma of the person too. For me, it's all about the presence of spirit. And once we can show them that they too have access to the power, but it's to help them cope with life and not to get their answers from the spirit world, because the spirit world I believe, is not allowed to interfere in our lives. They have to stand back and let us make mistakes. Otherwise, each person that's in spiritualism would be perfect, and we're far from that, But we need to be able to hold them in some way. And it may be, years ago we had Spirit of Youth in the Spiritualist National Union and various other activities. But it's got to be something that's modern and, in the moment, that holds people together. I love the idea of debates and discussion. I think that's far more meaningful for young people than just demonstrations of mediumship. The demonstration will bring them in, but it's the holding them there that's the problem for me. And I feel that if we had discussion or debates with young people that wanted to think about what the implications of spirit and spiritualism are, then I think we will have a chance to hold them. But there's not much going on where it comes to debate and discussion, unfortunately.
No, you're right, and that's prevalent, to a lot of the churches that I go to, whether that's on a Sunday or a Wednesday, if I'm doing demonstrations or on the rostrum, it's still very rigid in terms of a reading philosophy mediumship, philosophy mediumship, and those sort of things. And I actually, I did a reading. I did an evening for charity for cancer, and where I live, if I do something, I'm not just saying it, there'll be 50, 100 people there, and it's pretty busy. And I gave this reading to a lady who lost a son, and I'd explained about the car crash, and I'd explained, about how she went to the thing, and it was really, really, it was very moving, and it was very evidential. And I sort of stopped after that, and I said to the room, I said, we're all here this evening because you want messages. But the real reason we should be here is to sit with spirit and experience spirit. And I tell you now, if we stop now after that reading, we could all leave here thinking, wow, that was amazing. That was very moving. It was very touching. I said, how many of you actually experienced that reading? And they all said, everyone put their hands up. And I think for me, it's if we can get, if we can spiritualize the audience again, in terms of getting to understand don't be disappointed if you don't get a message, because if there's 50 people there, you can't give it, it can't be like speed dating where you're gonna run around everywhere and do it doesn't work like that. But
and the stuff that I have seen where it's done like that isn't worth having. When people go around and give everybody a message in the church, it's never got any value to it. Yeah.
No, but you want that you want to experience those moments of, wow, it profoundly changed that woman's life. You know what I mean? And she's told me afterwards, and we've had many conversations afterwards, how that day profoundly has changed her life. And it's doing that. But how do we come together as one and start to build these debates and try to move this thing forward? Because I'm really passionate about not seeing, because my concern is in my church, and I'm being the best I can. It's quite an old generation, and I'm just concerned that over time it may just fall away.
I think also and I'm not trying to fob this off onto anybody else, but we need young people to bring in young people. I remember at the time I was chairman of the Spirit of Youth only for about a year or so, and I remember people saying, "Well, have you got any young people in your committee?" And they've got a point, So we need young people to be, the voice, if you like, of young people today, and to show them that it's about. Also, I really feel strongly about care in the community as well. That we're not just what I call armchair spiritualists, that we can go out and work in the community too. But I would like to just say that I believe that the one area where our movement, my religion, really does excel is in healing. There's a massive healing movement within spiritualism, and I believe every medium is a healer first. And everything we say should come, everything we say, every action we have should come from a healing foundation. And that to me is something that we don't propound enough. But we have a wonderful healing movement within our religion, where, you know, people give up their time over and over again to help people behind closed doors, where there is no public acclaim. And yet, you know, I feel that healing is something that's so important to our movement, because that's how a lot of people come into our movement, is through healing. I know it certainly was the way I came in.
Yeah, it is special, and I've seen the work that takes place, you know, and on a Tuesday night and a Saturday day, where, you know, 5 or 6 healers give up their whole day to help people, and it truly is amazing. And you're right in terms of, you know, giving healing just by the messages and when you sit and give a reading, and you can see sometimes, you know, when you bring somebody who's passed over, and you can just see the weight just slowly lifting off their shoulders, and then you're sitting there going, wow, you know what I mean? And you'll come out of one reading and you'll say, this is exactly why I get up every morning. But it's you know, some of the mediums that I help and work with it when they're starting along, they do think it's a nice fluffy bunny ride, don't they? And there's a lot of scars. Yeah. Could you? I'm conscious of time, but could you tell us a little bit about, you know, how some of the experience that you've had and how they've helped you shape you and mold you into the character and the person you are today with vision system?
I think one of my favourite stories is when I first started out. I was just I'm sure other people will maybe find it funny. I didn't at the time, but I do now. I joined when things started to happen to me. I was invited to attend a circle, and I went along for one night, and I got expelled at the end of that night because I asked too many questions. So I went to another circle, and I got expelled at that one after a night as well. So I ended up just developing with my friend Christine and I. We hadn't got a clue what we were doing, not a clue, but we would just ask the spirit world to teach us. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years, and we did a divine service at my church, which is Norwich Church, and it's quite a formal church. It's a beautiful church. It's purpose built. It's got 250 seats. You're up high on the platform, and we did this service, and I can honestly say we were bad. I mean, we were chronic, you know, and we both got full-time jobs at that time. And I remember we got in the car and we just didn't stop moaning about how bad we were. We couldn't blame anybody. We couldn't blame the committee. We couldn't blame the audience. We couldn't blame the spirit world. We were just dire, you know. And I remember we got in the car and we just moaned all the way home about we're never going to do this again. It was nothing short of public humiliation and so on. And then the radio just came on. We hadn't turned the radio on. I was driving, so I know nobody turned the radio on. And a voice just said, but you are here to do God's work. And that's all it said. So we just looked at each other and went back to the drawing board, you know. And there's so many. I've got so many stories because you know what happened to my son and so on. But I won't bore you with them now. But lots of things like that happened to me every time I felt like, oh, I'm not sure that this is right for me. Something else would kick in, if you like. Something else would happen. The spirit world had different plans, and they would just help me get back on track when I got lost. And I did get lost a few times along the way, not really sure what my direction was. But I know now that my life without the spirit world would be, for me, lifeless. And it's just everything.
And I know maybe you would want to share, because I think, you know, I read a book, I'm reading a book called The One Mind at the moment, and they said that a picture speaks 1,000 words, but experience speaks 1,000 pictures. And I thought that was just one of those moments when you're walking the dog and you've got this earpiece in, and then if somebody walked past you, I just went, wow, that's amazing. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those moments. Could you share with me? Could you share with us just one of those bits where you were down and how you came around? Because I think when I went to the college and Lynn stood up, and it was the first Saturday night there, and I could have just written that in the book and walked out and said, It was worth the entry fee alone. Was when she said, "The sitter remembers the yeses, and you remember the nos."
Oh,
and for me, that was just like, what? I hadn't even thought of that. Like the pennies around my feet where they were just dropping every 5 minutes. It was incredible. Could you share with us a story where you did think, oh, where do I go from here?
Well, there's so many of them, I'm afraid, but there was one that I remember that was every time I used to do a Sunday service in our area. I used to have a friend called Muriel Tennant, who was a diploma holder of the Spiritualist National Union. She served the churches, she worked at the college, and she passed to the Spirit a few years ago. But we were very close friends, and she used to come with me when I was doing a service, and I would go with her when she was doing one. And when I used to come out of the service, I would tell her all the things I thought I could have improved on, everything that I did, which was absolutely dreadful. And one day she just turned to me and she said, "Simone, have you any idea what you do to the spirit world when you say that to me?" And that changed me. That changed me. Because I didn't see anything good about anything I ever did. And it changed me. I'm not saying I think I'm brilliant now. I don't mean that. But I can accept when somebody says yes, that they do understand and accept what I'm saying. I don't question them like, "Are you sure you're not just humouring me?" That's the difference now. So I just know that when they say yes, they're saying, "I understand and I accept," and then I can move on. But yeah, there's a lot. I think one of my most profound experiences was working at the college on an evening, and I can't remember, to be honest, if it was a Sunday or a Wednesday night. And there was a young man came through who had taken his own life, and he wanted to speak to his sister. And I gave the message, as we do. And halfway through, he suddenly stopped me and he said, "You must tell everybody that how much you help us. How much you help us." And that, and also the boy had said that at the funeral that people were saying, "What a waste of life." He was only about 19 or 20. And they were all saying that, "What a waste of life." And he said, "My life is as meaningful now as it ever was, and perhaps even more so." So those are the things that have changed me. And yeah, I actually feel quite strongly for people who are spiritualists, who get disillusioned, because we have all been there at some point. And somehow I like to help people, to help them find that energy back and help them find that core faith, if you like, that self-belief in what they do. I feel very strongly about that. There's not enough spoken, there's not enough shared in that field where we become very disillusioned. And often we don't recognise it, but often it's because we've worked too hard. We've done too much. And it's that hard work that's taken that energy away from us. And also, if you've worked really hard and you felt you haven't been fulfilled in your way, then it can leave you feeling very down and depressed. And that's when I would like to come back to a spiritualist and say, hang on a minute, just remind them of how many other times they have helped somebody to achieve a new life, for instance, a new turning point, a transformation. All of those things matter. And we must never forget the point of what we do.
I was truly honoured and blessed to be able to conduct this interview with such a lady with such high integrity, so many fantastic values, morals, and a very clear vision of where she sees the spiritual movement going. We need light workers like this in the world, and I'm so proud to say that this lady profoundly changed my life. You've been listening to episode 11 of That's the Spirit with Simone Key. Please don't forget to watch the live shows on That's the Spirit one page on Facebook. Thank you for listening, We do appreciate. God bless, and remember, be love and give love. Goodbye.